Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and welcome to round 4 of season 4 of Who Reviews the Reviewers. Finally, bringing the show back. We've had quite the hiatus, but the good news is we're going to have a brand new episode of Who Reviews the Reviewers every week until the season is finally over, and a live finale at the end. I'll be announcing that here shortly and let you know when that's going to happen. I'm going to be posting these a little bit differently for the remainder of the season, so you're going to have 2 different videos breaking up each round because a lot of folks have expressed interest in seeing the full deliberations and have preferred that to the format that I've been using, the kind of standard reality show format. So what I'm going to be doing instead, starting with this video, is today you're going to see all of the reviews for round 4 and all the interviews, and then in a couple days I'll be posting the full deliberations, and I'll be doing that once again every week for the next few weeks until this season is finished. This time, we asked the contestants to review anything they wanted to, but in a completely raw format. It's the raw upload challenge. So the contestants this time were not allowed to do any editing whatsoever. They have to rely completely on their wits. And once again, if you'd like to, you can watch all of the reviews from this round right here and learn a little bit about the process that each of the contestants went through and how they felt about this round. And then in a couple days you can watch the full deliberations, and I'll make it possible with timestamps for you to skip around to whichever parts you'd like to watch. And if you want to, you can just see how it all ends with the top banana and the vote off in the deliberations when I post it, or you can go ahead and watch all the videos now. Once again, that it's appropriate we're doing this now because that's going to be a raw upload itself pretty much, so I won't be editing in the videos. You'll see it the way that that me and the judges are watching it. So if you don't want to have to sit through us watching a thing on a screen, feel free to skip ahead through those parts, but you'll be able to see them in top quality right here, right now. So without further ado, here are the contestants' reviews for round 4, and enjoy.
Hello everyone, this is Jay Willie Rasco from Squatch Gang, bringing you guys a review of the 1994 through 1995 Fantastic Four animated television series. So let's do it. Okay, so as a kid, this was always my favorite cartoon, for a couple reasons, but the main ones were that this series does a great job of taking Fantastic Four stories from the comics and adapting them in a way that, you know, somewhat simplifies them, but also does them justice and, you know, captures, you know, the guts of what those stories are about, you know, the essence, you know, the substance behind what made some of the Fantastic Four stories great. So, you know, we have the Coming of Galactus, we have, you know, the Inhuman Saga, you know, the Fantastic Four and the Black Panther stuff. We have so much stuff that is taken directly from the comics and adapted in a really thoughtful and smart way that allows for both, you know, little kids and, you know, people that are a little bit older to both watch the show and both like it, which is really, really, really awesome. The show has a great sense of continuity. So, you know, a lot of shows, like Batman the Animated Series, it doesn't really matter what episode you watch after, you know, so it doesn't matter what order you watch the episodes in. Most of the time, you know, if it's a multi-part episode in that, then obviously it does. But for the most part, the Batman Animated Series can really be watched in any order you really want. The episodes don't really, you know, rely on what happened last time. So this show's a little bit different from that, though, because of the fact that it, you know, it adapts big stories like the Coming of Galactus and stuff. So, you know, it's got a lot of multi-part episodes. So it plays a lot better if you watch the series in order, which is something that I kind of like because it makes it feel a little bit more like a serialized medium, more like a comic book, and that's really awesome. Another thing that I like is the fact that there are other Marvel characters besides the Fantastic Four in this show. You know, like I said, Black Panther, but we also have the Hulk and we have Daredevil, which are just freaking awesome that this universe feels so connected. It feels like the actual Marvel universe. It feels like any character could pop up at any time, and that's really awesome because, you know, it's a universe. You know, there are other characters in it, and that's a good thing. So I really like that. But the biggest problem I have with this series is probably the fact that the early episodes are not to the same level of quality that the later episodes are. So I think that all comes down to the fact that it really has a hard time finding the tone that it wants to go with. You know, it has a hard time finding what kind of show it wants to be. Sometimes it's really silly, and other times, you know, it kind of tries to get a little bit more serious and a little bit more heartfelt. But those mixing of awkward tones, you know, you don't really know, is it for kids, is it for older people, based on those early episodes. And as the series goes on, the quality increases, and, you know, it finds what it wants to be and it focuses. But in the early episodes, you know, there's just a really big lack of characterization. Like the Thing, like Ben Grimm, he's turned into an orange rock monster, and they barely even have anything dealing with the fact that he may be kind of, you know, upset that he's now a rock monster. There's like one line of dialogue that kind of like, it's like, oh, I'm kind of sad that I'm a rock monster, but whatever. And that's just kind of weird. You'd think that maybe he would want to deal with that, you know, because he's a rock monster now, and like that would kind of make a person upset. But no, not in this show. They do deal with that stuff later on in the series, which is awesome that they picked up on that and, you know, and corrected that mistake and actually did something with that later on. But in the beginning, when it really needed to be there, it wasn't there. So that's a big problem with this series for me, is that the early episodes don't do a great job of telling the origin story very well, and there's just a big lack of characterization in those early episodes. But like I said, as the series goes on, those problems really fade away. And, you know, there's a lot of great episodes here and really faithful adaptations of some of the better stories from the comics. And overall, I really like this animated series. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 6 Squatches. See you guys next time. Peace.
Hi guys, so got the questions here and I'm going to answer them, so let's do it. Okay, so I picked this subject for review, the Fantastic Four 90s animated series, because it was one of those like animated series that I watched a whole ton as a kid, because I had like the whole series on DVD, so I watched it a bunch, and it's one of the reasons that I like Fantastic Four to this day. So that is part of it, and the other half is that I think that it's actually really easy to talk about something that like something as broad as like a television series. I think that works for kind of like an off the cuff sort of review, which is what like I wanted to do for this round. So a sort of off-the-cuff review is lends itself to talking about something that's really broad, like a entire animated series. So yeah, the hardest part of this challenge was definitely getting like talking for as close to 4 minutes as possible, because, you know, like you want to get as much of the time, you want to use as much time as you have, but you don't want to go over, so, you know, like getting it right at 4 minutes, like just talking off the cuff for 4 minutes is it's probably the hardest part. If I had to do anything differently, if I were to do it over, if I had to do anything different, I think I'd just do more takes. I think I'd just keep going for an even more perfect take if I had more time, or if I could do it over again, that's what I would have done. I would have just kept doing it until I got an even more perfect take. I don't think I'm going to get top banana this round. I just don't think it's the best video that I've made. Yeah, so I don't think I'm going to get top banana this round. And comparing my performance this round to last, I felt like this round my performance wasn't really that comparable to last round, because this was a, you know, like off the cuff, like, you know, just like no editing challenge, which is just, you know, very different from what we've all been doing in the competition so far. So I think that I mean, it's probably just slightly not as good, but I mean, it was so different that it was kind of hard to compare my performance to last round. So yeah, that's all, guys. See you later. Peace out. Bye.
Shh. What we are looking at today is a rare specimen called Fuleko. What is Fuleko, you ask? Well, don't let the obvious fake accent fool you. I was raised 70% American and 30% Brazilian. And Brazil happened to be having the honors of holding the World Cup just 1 year ago this month. And with that came the task of creating a mascot to go with that soccer event. And so they settled on a chibi armadillo named Fuleko, with all kinds of merchandising possibilities. Let's take a better look at one of the hollow plastic family. Look at this little guy. Isn't he a beaut? He's so beautiful. Just 3 points of articulation, and that is it. Just 3. Head and arms. a couple of paint splotches here and there, but nothing too major. Anyway, I am not that much of an expert on soccer, in fact not at all, but I do know that apparently the goalie is the only one who is allowed to handle the soccer ball with his hands. So if you're not a goalie, then red card. But either way, the soccer ball he's holding feels redundant. Not that he could let go of it anyway, but it's just that the visual element of soccer is already implanted into him. In his anatomy specifically. I mean, look at him. It's like they spliced him together with a soccer ball in a lab somewhere, a secret evil lab. Not my secret evil lab, because it's non-existent, because I can't afford one. But anyway, I happen to be a fan of armadillos, but this guy does not seem like a good representation. I mean, if you took away his head plate and his shell, he could easily pass off as just a baby deer. Probably because they gave him a puppy dog nose instead of a more appropriate pig-like nose. And also, an armadillo shell is supposed to take up most of their body. And with this guy, it's like they thought, oh, that would make him look too fat because he's a soccer mascot. So let's give him a fit, human-like body and just stick on the shell as a afterthought. As a result, it seems less like a shell and more like a leech or a parasitic bug that has latched itself onto his body and is sucking out all of his blood. Ah! But a stylistic choice I do like is the universal cute factor. You got the classic big oversized head and big oversized detailed eyes right out of the littlest pet shop. But now I looked this guy up online to see his price. I got this guy as a gift, by the way, so I didn't have to worry about price. But he is around 60 bucks on eBay. Yeah. So if you're looking for this guy, I'd go for the plushie version because there's a lot more available and they're a lot less expensive. So now when you grow from a small child to a serious toy collector, you tend to specify your sensibilities. I've currently narrowed down mine to a specific type of scale and a specific amount of articulation and a specific style. And this guy does not meet up to those specifications, but I still enjoy keeping him on display because he is a fond reminder of what I used to look forward to getting as a child. Now comes the point where I must release him back into the wild. Be free, Fuleko. Be free. Be free. Oh God, he's trying to get his dominance. Oh, he's trying to maintain his dominance. Help me, MrGoodPlot. Help. So the reason why I chose little Fuleko, the armadillo, is because ever since I was entered into this contest, I always thought about maybe, you know, reviewing this guy whenever I'd have to review a physical object, if that was ever going to have to happen. And when we were given the random criteria and we were allowed to review anything, I thought, maybe I could review this guy, because ever since I first got him as a gift, I always thought, oh, he's kind of reviewing material. I already came up with what I was going to say as soon as I got him, like how the bug, the shell looks more like a bug sucking out his blood, and how he looks like how he's from the littlest pet shop. I was going to say all those things, but I was going to be like, maybe I should wait, save all that critique for when this competition comes back. The most difficult, I'd say the most difficult part was having everything line up. You would hear the wind louder than you would hear my voice, so I had to take more, so that's why I had to go 2 days out there. And there was also the matter of, rain. Like, there was constant rain, summer rains. You can never predict them. So that was something I had to also worry about, was, you know, you never knew when rain was all of a sudden going to come out of nowhere and potentially ruin all your camera equipment. And also bugs. Bugs were a problem. They not biting me, although I did get bitten by a couple. But not just in that way. Just chirping. Just always chirping really loud. And so I had to go out there twice. But anyway, I guess something I would do differently is, you know, find a slightly different location, because if you look in the background, you can see electric posts, electric poles, and you can also see that horse. And even though the horse does add to the environment, he does make it kind of less of what I was trying to go for like a wild environment that is cut off by civilization. That was the setting I was trying to go for. That I went into the middle of the wilderness and found this guy. That was what I was trying to go for. So a horse, maybe that kind of took people out of it a little bit. Like, hey, there's a horse. Hopefully, maybe people didn't know that was a horse. Maybe they thought it was some kind of tiger or a chupacabra or something that is not a horse that you would see in the wild. Now, will I get Top Banana? Well, I've seen the other contestants' submissions, a couple of them, and they do seem to have were able to film more takes. I did that too, of course, but you know, I had access. I didn't have the ability to make as many takes as I would want because, you know, of where I was. But I did do several practice takes, you know, rehearsal takes, and but I still felt like on the one that I ultimately chose, I still flubbed up a couple times. So I think that one of them is more likely to get Top Banana than me because of my occasional stutters and whatnot. But then again, I've been wrong, really wrong about Top Banana before.
No matter how much they praise you, there will always be the chance that everything will come crumbling down, and you will never truly meet to their standards. And if that day ever comes, I'll be waiting for you.
So is that skull guy real or not?
Are we real or not?
Oh, whoa, that was too much for my little bunny brain to handle, man.
Hey guys, the Comics Kid 2099 here, Jedak of YouTube. I'm here to talk about the 2012 film John Carter. This is a story you've seen many times before. The story of someone who loses their family and is thrust into this big, exciting space adventure. But while movies like Star Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy do incredibly well, this movie kind of fails, financially speaking anyway. Why is that? I think the big reason is budget. This movie had a $260 million budget, but it only made about $70 million while it was in theaters. Meanwhile, the Guardians of the Galaxy had a $170 million budget, but it made almost twice that while it was in theaters. If you have a smaller budget, chances are you're going to have a bigger profit. I even know that, and I'm not even a Jedak of business school. Having said that, a lot of movies that have such a huge budget like this tend to have a whole lot of CGI. And this movie does have a lot of CGI, but while most movies could get away with using a little bit more practical effects, which would be cheaper, this movie really doesn't have any moment where it could use the practical effects instead of the CGI. So that may be a big reason why the budget was so high, but that's also a big reason why this movie failed, at least financially speaking. Having said that, this movie is terrific fun. It is one of my favorite space adventure movies now after seeing it, and there's several reasons for that. Now, I read the book about 7 years ago, and if you haven't read the book, none of this is going to mean anything to you, but this movie actually changes some things from the book, and it makes the story better. Number one, it changes the character of Dejah Thoris. In the early 1900s, women were looked at very differently than they were in the early 2000s. Women are actually people and human beings and characters, and this movie knows that, while the book doesn't really know that. In the book, Dejah Thoris was basically just just a trophy to be won by male characters. In the movie, she's a historian. She's an academician. She can take care of herself with a sword. And I like that this movie changes her up and actually makes her a character. That is definitely improvement in my opinion. Also, this movie adds some villains who weren't in the book. Now, for all I know, they were in one of the sequels by Burroughs, but they weren't in the first book. And these guys are actually manipulating the bad guy of the book, the Warlord of Zoldenga, and they are basically puppet masters, and he's just kind of one of their minions. And I was totally fine with this, at least on paper, because the Warlord of Zoldenga really isn't that interesting in the book, and he's not super interesting in the movie. So I was totally fine with having some different bad guys in this movie. The problem is, these bad guys who are manipulating the Zoldenga guy, they don't really have any motivations that are explored in this movie. We don't know why they are trying to foment this civil war on Mars. We know that they're doing it, and Mark Strong, who leads the bad guys, he's a terrific actor, and every time I'm on screen, I am in love with him. But his motivations aren't really explored, and that's one of my big problems with this movie. The other big problem I have is that John Carter himself isn't really proactive for about half the movie. For the first half of the part where he's on Mars, all he wants to do is get back to Earth, and that's understandable. If you are stranded on a strange and foreign planet and you want to get back home, I totally get that. But there comes a certain point where I want to see him start acting like a hero and stop acting so selfish, and that comes way too late in the movie, in my humble opinion. This movie is really fun, really great. It does have some flaws, but I was able to overcome those flaws and enjoy this movie. In fact, watching this movie, I became angry. So angry that I determined anyone who went to see Guardians of the Galaxy in theaters and didn't go to see John Carter, you are going to get a punch in the face sometime in the future. Everyone else, I hope that you guys liked this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys all in the future with another video. Or with a punch in the face. When you least expect it, expect it. Hey guys, the Comics Kid 2099 wearing a shirt this time, and I'm here with some interview questions for this round of Who Reviews the Reviewers. The first question, why did I pick this particular thing for review? Because I had just recently watched the movie, and we got the Deliberation video, I think a couple of days after I'd watched the movie, and then we had a little less than 2 weeks to go ahead and get the next round up. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. For a little while, for maybe a day, I was actually thinking about doing an Iron Man comic, and I had this whole idea where I was going to try and make it look like I was trapped inside a cave, and I was going to have a jelly jar lid taped to my chest, and I was going to pretend like I was Tony Stark reviewing this Iron Man comic. And basically the big reason why I didn't end up going with that direction was because I had no location at all that could look like a cave. I could have done it inside a tool shed, but that would have required a whole lot of moving tools around, and even at the end of all of that, it would not have looked like a cave. It would have been a whole lot of work for something that would not have looked like what I wanted it to look like. And so after shooting down my initial idea myself, I decided, well, I could do this John Carter movie. And I had this pair of suspenders that kind of sort of looked like John Carter's Jedak armor that he has in the John Carter movie. And I thought, you know what, I could do that anywhere. It wouldn't have to be inside a cave like the Iron Man comic kind of would be dependent on him being in a cave, kind of like he is in the first movie. And I thought about doing that, and I decided to go ahead and do the John Carter movie. And so the next question is, what was the hardest part of this video? And believe it or not, the hardest part is not doing the whole thing in one take, because outside of this contest, a lot of my videos are done in one take. Once in a blue moon, I will edit something out, mostly if it's just me saying or trying to catch a breath or something like that. But for the most part, I film most of my videos with the intention of them being one long take. And then I do a little bit of editing, more than what I did for this round, but for the most part, most of my videos are one take. If I do mess up, if I flub a sentence or something like that, I will go ahead and edit it out. But for the most part, my videos are kind of like this video for this round. The hardest part, believe it or not, was just trying to get it done in 4 minutes, because I didn't write a full-on script. I had bullet points written down on a sheet of paper, and then I just started kind of rehearsing these bullet points and kind of fleshing them out on the go, and then as I was doing that, I was timing myself, and I rehearsed this maybe 10 or 12 times without even using a camera, and then once I felt like I had it under 4 minutes and I had just about everything that I wanted to say under 4 minutes, I started setting up my filming station, and then I had to go another 6 times of filming before I was finally able to get it done in 4 minutes, and that was really the hardest part for me. In fact, there is an unused version of this video that I have deleted. I didn't think that I really needed it, and it was actually, in my opinion, a little better than the final product, but it went 5 minutes long. And so the hardest part for me was getting it all done in 4 minutes, because like I said, my average video is very unedited. It's very much just me kind of rambling on camera, but my average video is also longer than 10 minutes usually, or around 10 minutes long. So the hardest part for me was trying to keep this thing under the time limit. If this thing said no time limit at all, but you can't edit, then I would have been gold. I would have been solid gold. I feel like I would have been much closer to getting the top banana if that's what we were told. But we had a time limit on this one. And that kind of segues into one of the last questions. Do you feel like you'll get top banana this round? I don't think so. I don't think, in this whole competition, I don't think I'm ever going to get top banana. Now, I could be wrong, because I've been surprised by some of the choices for top banana in this contest. I'm not going to say any names or anything, but there have been a few times where I was like, oh, they went in that direction. That's interesting. And so maybe that'll happen to me. I kind of doubt it, though. I'm really afraid that all of the other contestants are going to have much more interesting choices for their videos, where even though there's no cuts, even though there's nothing done with the sound, and there's no multiple takes being spliced together into a really good video, even though there's none of that, I have this fear that everyone else is going to do something a lot more visually stunning with their one-take 4-minute video, whereas mine, even though it might have been funny and it might have been an amusing gimmick, it was still essentially me sitting in front of a camera talking for 4 minutes, which is what I do on my normal videos, and so that was something that I wanted to do for this video. I didn't want to try something unexpected. I didn't want to try doing this while running down the street holding my camera or something like that. That might have been a more interesting choice for my video, but at the same time, it would have been harder for me to have achieved that. So no, I don't think that I'm going to get top banana for that very reason. The next choice, the next question is, what would you do differently if you had to do it all over again? Probably, if I had to do it over again, I would prefer to have a little bit more time to think through what I wanted to do. Because like I said, it seemed like we didn't get a lot of time for this one, and maybe we've had about that much time on all the others, and since we didn't have to do any editing at all, this is actually a whole lot of time that we had for this one. But I actually knew I was going to be out of town when the video was due, so I knew I needed to get mine up even earlier, and so I felt like I didn't have as much time as I've had on some of the other videos this round, or this contest. But that's not really something that is in my control. So maybe I just wish that I had more time to think of something interesting to do for my video. And I think what I did was pretty interesting, having not seen any of the other contestants or their videos for this round, but I am still living in fear that everyone else will do something even more interesting than what I did. So if I could do something differently, it would be trying to think of a little bit more of a fun little gimmick for this round. The next question, do I think I'll get top banana? I already answered that one. How do you feel about your performance this round compared to last round? Well, on the one hand, they've been saying for a few rounds now that they want to see more of me on camera, and now they've seen 4 minutes of me, and they've seen even more of me than they probably wanted to see. So, you know, you can't say that I'm not playing to the demographic of the judges. Having said that, I think that I got everything that I wanted to say about this movie out of the way. I think I was able to say everything that I wanted to say. I do wish that I could have spent more time talking about this. I wish that we could have had a little bit more time to talk about this, because I'm afraid that somebody who hasn't seen this movie is going to feel a little lost. They're going to think that I'm maybe going too fast, and that's been a complaint from a few of the judges a couple of times. They feel like I'm going way too fast. And with this one, I was going pretty fast because I wanted to get everything that I wanted to say done in 4 minutes. And if I slow down to take a breath, then that's time that I can't get back in my video, and that's time that I can't edit out of my video and try and get back with editing. So I tried to go very fast so that I could get as much of what I wanted to say into 4 minutes. But how do I feel about it? I guess I don't really like this one as much as some of my others, simply because on my others I can edit it and make it a little bit more polished. But of course, that was not an option on this one. So what do I think of it? I'm ultimately pretty happy with my video. Again, having not seen any of my other competitors or their videos, I don't know what they brought to the table this round, but I liked my video when all was said and done. I just wish that there was a few things that I wish we could have done that weren't part of the criteria, and that's not really a complaint against the contest. That's just me saying that I feel like this video that I did would have been better if those options were available to us. So those are all the questions that I have. I want to wish everyone in the contest still very hearty, very sincere good luck. I wish all of you the best of luck. I will maybe see you guys next round. I'll maybe see most of you guys next round, or maybe you won't see me next round. The lighting just changed on my face because my computer went out. So that's all that I have to say in this interview. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that it was informative. I'll see you guys next round, hopefully. See you then.
Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors is but the first of 18 comedies of his. First performed around 1592, it's the Bard's shortest and not one of his big hits today, though it was quite popular back then. A man and his slave come to Ephesus when, looking for their long-lost twins who bear names the same as theirs, whilst folk know not they have came from Syracuse, Ephesians' wartime foe. Hilarities ensue, then off to home you go. Though not deep by any means of the mind, Shakespeare proved himself to be one of a kind with wordplay, and began to show off here, his swift and smart language being the star clear, that star language being different too. You know iambic pentameter, do you? A style hip in this time where you find 10 syllables in a line, 10 in a line, only broken on occasion when need. Here in errors, though, there doth beeth no heed. The pattern is broken all of the time, and most of the lines in this play are of rhyme, but this break in 10 is still patterned fine. 10 syllables a line, 11 a line, 10, 11, 10, 11, and so, and sometimes this pattern breaks too and goes prose. The 10-11 pattern is most used in the format in which I speaketh to you. Don't believe me? Don't have a conniption. Instead, why don't you checketh the description? The rhyming is to increase the pacing, and extra syllable lines keep flow racing. Therefore the pace is to be lightning quick. Apart from the pace, the meter doesn't stick to one form for unpredictable tone. Fitting for subject matter, travelers alone in a town known for its spook and witchcraft. An identity's mistaken? But it's daft. An absurd, light, unpredictable farce, come complete with humorous beatings and arse. So how doth I feel about this play? I thoroughly enjoy it. Let's count the ways. 1. The jokes doth make me laugh plentiful. Shakespeare, being the master of words and all, writes jokes that can be read so many ways. 2. With the long-winded jokes, the humor stays sharp, most of them not wearing their welcome. So 2 or 3 recurring gags, they aren't dumb when they choose to pop up from time to time. 3. The characters, though as deep as a dime, are colorful archetypes whose troubles make you laugh, and don't try to pretend and lull to act as something deeper than they be. The men and their slaves, those are respectively, the Antipholus and the Dromio, are the straight men and clowns who telleth the jokes. 4. The humour is not of contrivance, rather it springeth from inconvenience. This course I see fit as more natural than that of, say, Midsummer Night's Dream, so foul. Before I move into matters less neat, there's something I like, but you might give some heat. Yes, I'm speaking here about the humour. I laugh, but 'tis not for every consumer. I see it Shakespeare's stoner comedy. What, with fat jokes, fart jokes, phallic jokes? Really? Par for the course if you know your Shakespeare, but could be off-putting since that's all that's here. I wouldn't find it at all humorous, but 'tis so cleverly written I don't fuss. There's a single fat joke that runs 2 pages, and in a single scene, in successive rage, fart joke, phallic joke, vaginal joke too. It'd be enough to make Grandma's face all blue. But the story's not without its faults. One scene in particular brings to a halt the story for a gag that goes nowhere, nor is it called back this humor about hair between the Syracusians in Act 2. Out of place, long-winded, nor funny in lieu. Also in tunage with plays of this time is in Act 5, another complaint of mine. Everyone needs to talk and explain what it is they've done throughout the play in rain of monologue after monologue long. We've already seen the play and know the wrong of their decisions, but they need to talk as characters to know what happened and walk into the sunset for the happy end. Though understandable for its time, I tend to see these as wastes of time and of breath. This storytelling method is outdated. As I wind down this review, I thank you for putting up with this style I review. If you enjoy good Shakespeare comedies, The Comedy of Errors is one of these. Well-written crest jokes and thin yet fun folks fill this light farce of quite hilarious woes. Till next review, I'll see you again. I'll give this foolish play an 8 out of 10. Hey there, Connor here to answer some interview questions for Who Reviews the Reviewers Round 4. Round 4! First, sorry about the bad lighting. The quality of this video looks like a snuff film. I just got back from vacation. I threw some stuff together to get this interview out. And I have like crazy hair going on. I mean, look at this thing. It looks alive. It's eating me. I look like Jim Steranko. Why did I review The Comedy of Errors? As the deadline was getting nearer and nearer, I was unsure of what I was going to review. When it was announced that it was going to be an unedited 4-minute review, part of me went, you gotta be kidding me. I just did the Birdman review. I almost lost my mind. And naturally, I almost lost my mind again with this review. But, you know, it's a challenge. That's what it's there for. I didn't know what I was going to do. I could do whatever I wanted, and I was just baffled. I didn't know. And I was in a production of The Comedy of Errors as Antipholus of Syracuse, who's the main-ish character. I'd studied the play and really looked into it, and I wasn't really reviewing a certain production. I was reviewing the story, and kind of dissecting it as a Shakespeare play. And it was totally different. Nobody was going to tackle Shakespeare. It had no Batman in it. What was the hardest part of this review? Twofold. First off, writing it, undoubtedly. I did it in 10 syllables, 11 syllables, 10 syllables, 11 syllables, line by line. And that was very difficult. What I did was I had a regular script that I just, wrote down in a couple hours. And then I translated it into what you heard, which was 100 lines. There was 50 rhyming couplets, in that review, and I had to memorize it all. So memorizing it was very difficult. I wanted to do it in that style because I thought because it rhymed, it would be easier to remember. Kind of like how a song is easier to remember than a speech, because rhyming, it's easier. Not the case. Because of the 10-11 syllable format, I had to make sure everything I said fit into that, or else the whole thing's lost. And I did it. And I actually put the script in the description as much as it would let me, because I wrote the whole thing down and said the description was too long. Oh well, sorry. It was in that 10-11 though. How do I feel about my performance this round compared to last round? It's very different. I don't know if I would compare them. One was a very standard, this is me reviewing this comic, black and white cutaways, me sitting here, review. And this one was back to that one take, and it was all about the style. And the style worked. I think it was a very successful review. I was able to get my point across in that dialect without stumbling and, keeping up with the fast pace of the language. So I think it was very successful. More successful, I think, to what I wanted to do than my last review was. I think it was a little bit more successful. If I had more time, what would I do differently? I don't really know. I guess nothing. It was very, very difficult. I would have gotten it out earlier, but, I go to college full-time, and finals, they happened, and I would have gotten it out earlier, though. There was just so much going on. Jurassic World was opening, and I work at a movie theater. A lot of people wanted to see that movie. So I got the video out. I would have done that differently. I do think the video met what I wanted to do. Do I see myself getting top banana? Maybe. I didn't see ThatMattKid or Squatch Gang's reviews. I don't know if they were unlisted or not, but I didn't get around to seeing them. I thought mine was very, very ambitious, you know, going with the Shakespeare dialect. And I think I have had a little bit of experience with the one-take thing. So I felt I was kind of natural at it, and, you know, just getting off being in the play, I thought it all worked out very well. So I don't know, top banana. I don't think I'll get voted off. I think the review was successful enough. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, and I am going to go see what I can do about this.
Good evening. Let's talk about a little movie called Rear Window, the original 1954 film directed by Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense. It stars Jimmy Stewart as a photojournalist named Jeffrey. He has a broken leg and he passes time during the hot summer days by staring out of his window at the neighbors, and he begins to suspect that one of them, named Thorwald, just might be a murderer. The rest of the movie is him and his friends solving the case. Now, contrary to many cinematic techniques, the camera actually never leaves the room. There's not much editing either. Everything is tightly rehearsed, as if it's a play. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something really creepy about the whole thing too, like how a murder could be going on right next to home, because you never gonna know what's going on behind closed doors. It's not a horror film, it's a mystery thriller, but it has its fair share of slow and ominous and delightfully suspenseful little moments, like Jeffrey will look around the neighborhood very slowly, very quiet, and you can hear ambient noises of the city in the distance. They're great. There are two central things going on in this movie. There's the murder mystery, but also Jeff is having problems with his girlfriend Lisa, played by Grace Kelly. The two have very different lifestyles and are having problems getting along because of this or that. What does it take to bind them back together even tighter than they were before? Solving a murder case. It's a great example of Mr. Hitchcock's dark sense of humor. But despite centering around something as unnerving as a secret murder, Rear Window really does have its nice moments. It has a very warm tone that can make you happy. It has this in common with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. There's always soothing music coming from one of the other apartments belonging to a songwriter. Franz Waxman's fast jazz score is really upbeat. And the characters in the midst of all this lighten the mood and share a laugh. There are a lot of, the movie has a lot of human parts. Like the ones buried in the garden. All the other neighbors in the distance are shown to have some kind of problem, and throughout the movie, when we're not focused on Thorwald, we see them overcome it. Like, there's a lonely middle-aged woman who contemplates suicide from time to time. There's a young ballerina that's having social issues. There's, the songwriter's having trouble getting his life together, but by the end of the movie, all the characters have overcome their problems, all the loose ends are tied, and you walk away feeling a little better about life. Rear Window is a true masterpiece, and is one of my favorite movies of all time. It comes close to being number one. If you're passionate about filmmaking or movies in general, I highly recommend it. I'm giving Rear Window full marks. 4 out of 4. Thanks for watching, everyone. This is Kai, and as always, I'll see you all next time. First question is why I picked Rear Window. I picked Rear Window because this was a round window, because this was like the round where we couldn't, use any footage, or edit at all, and I felt like Rear Window, movie I know incredibly well, and I felt like the best way to review it was in a setting that, recreated it somehow, because, like I say, and it takes place in that one space, looking out the window, and that, through that room, and there's not much editing. And everything is very tightly rehearsed like a play. And I think I was able to recreate that setting, kind of. Hardest part, I shot this 88 takes, that was the number. And it's not like I'm a perfectionist and I was like nitpicking little things that don't really matter. The video I uploaded, my Rear Window review, that is the one and only take where I was able to get all the way through, because, well, it's not hard to rehearse things, it's just hard to get it right with without editing a little here. Most videos people, incorporate little jump cuts here and there from when, they... What I'd do differently if I had to do it again? I would definitely try fixing the sound. I know my sound, I have problems with on-camera audio. I know that it was pretty quiet. I would try to fill up that extra minute that I had in time space, because, I just could have fit more in there. Will I get Top Banana? Like I said last time, I think there are better reviews out there. I probably wouldn't get it at this time, but who knows, I might be wrong. And, yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, everyone.
There he is. It's the Mr. Cool. Mr. Cool! Mr. Cool!
Please leave me alone, man.
Hey, I heard allegations that, you've been doing some other work on the side with YouTube Poops there. I mean, how true is that? I mean, you got some reviews?
Man,
I mean, come on.
Leave me alone.
I heard, you can do some great reviews, man. Could you do a review for us today? Come on.
If I do one, will you leave me alone?
Yeah, sure.
Alright then, good. Hello there, everybody. It's Mr. Cool 210 here with another review for you. And to celebrate the release of Entourage the movie, I'm here to do a quick review of Teenage Paparazzo, another movie starring Adrien Grenier. Quick, what the heck is that?
Huh? What the? Hey, what? Hey, get back here! Hey, come on! Oh, come on, we had a deal, man.
Fine.
Just one short review, that's all.
Fine.
Alright, come on.
The film stars Austin Vishtik and Adrien Grenier, and it explores their relationship as celebrity and paparazzo. And it also just goes into the general ideas of what it's like to be a paparazzi and what it's like to be a celebrity hunted by the paparazzi. First, as always, let's move on to some positives. The film is very thorough with everything that it does. It gives you all the facts, and I love it for that. I love that it's really good at telling you, hey, this is what it's like being a paparazzi, this is like what it's like being a celebrity, and it lets you decide whose side you want to be on for this. Also, it's really great that it also has these small little touches. For example, Adrien Grenier is a celebrity, so there's points in time where he'll be walking around and they'll see people that are shooting him with cameras, which I love that touch, and it really shows that they did take good care and weren't like, hey, get off the set. Not a movie for you. And then finally, the one thing I really do love in this film is that Austin, the kid who is a teenage paparazzo, goes through a character arc. There's a status quo in the beginning of the movie. There's a change that he can go through. He decides to take it, and he's a different person by the end of the film. A documentary that can do that is really good in my book. I've never seen that in a documentary before, and I wish I saw that in more of them. The only real negatives I could see are that, A, there are times where the sound is a bit more... Well, thanks. There are times when the sound is very hard to hear. I don't know if it was the microphone or they just couldn't take a second take, but that should have been fixed in post, or just refilm it and ask the same sort of question. And when it comes to the camera, sometimes they have this weird aspect ratio change where it's just like, hey, it's over here on the top right, and we're gonna have this whole section of the screen be black. Why'd they do that? I have no idea. If those things would have been fixed, I would have given it a higher score. But as it is, I gotta give it an 8 out of 10. If you can't see it, I definitely would recommend checking it out.
Oh, great. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Cool. Hey, do you think you might be able to do one more?
No.
I mean, honestly, come on. Just one more. It's only a short little one. Come on.
No.
Oh, really? What do you know?
You like it? How do you...
Hey there, everybody. It's Mr. Cool 210 here, playing the part of Ben, who actually plays the part of Mr. Cool for the interview section of Who Reviews the Reviewers, here to answer more questions from the Captain of the Logans. Now, when we get started, the reason I picked what I reviewed for this section was mostly because of the criteria. I always thought no editing was going to be really hard to do for my kind of style of reviewing. I know I couldn't do the usual have a picture and this and this and this. So I had to think of something unique, something different. And I thought, why don't I find a movie and then try to imitate that style? And that definitely fit with that Teenage Paparazzo. I thought, it's a movie about the paparazzi, so I'll do the review in a paparazzi style, and that'd make it a bit more unique and hopefully try to stand out from the crowd, and if I succeeded in that, I hope so. But there was a lot of good videos this year, or this month, not this year. Round, month, week, whatever. Round 4, good videos this round. I almost did it again. And the hardest part, I would definitely say, is it's two things. It's writing the script was pretty easy because I just wrote it the way I usually do. But filming it and getting the right time to film it, that was really difficult, especially with well, for people might notice that person who calls me like a nerd in the video. I'll let you know right now that wasn't scripted. That is not part of the script. That guy really did just call me that in the middle of filming. And I would have filmed it again, but the problem was it rained immediately after filming, and we were running out of time because of life just generally getting in the way. So it was difficult just to find the right time and place to film everything, and I did eventually find a good place, and I do think the review turned out okay for what I wanted. I kind of wish I would have gone on a bit longer, because there was a couple things that I forgot from my script, because I had to go off memory for that. But like, yeah, that was the most difficult part, was just trying to find the exact place and time to film everything and make sure it all looked authentically like a paparazzi video and not like just, you know, my typical videos. Try to stand out, like I said before. What I'd do differently if I had to do it over again. Once again, I said I'd probably make it, if I had more time and I could do it over, I probably would, like I said, do it a bit longer. But the problem was, like I said, I forgot, and I thought I was running on to the 4 minutes, but it only turned out to be a little bit over 3. I might have tried maybe filming it in a documentary style, because that's the style of the movie, but I thought that might have taken up too much time to do it in that way, especially since I don't really have the equipment to film it in a documentary style either. But it was either that or what I did, and I think what I did turned out okay. It wasn't like I'm not like angry with anything I did. I mean, hell, the guy who called me a nerd in the middle of the video, people told me they really like him, and they kind of wish he was scripted, but they're kind of surprised he wasn't. I'll say that I guess maybe get a different way of shooting the camera, because it was a bit too, I don't know, something about it really just didn't feel paparazzi enough in my opinion, but people do seem to like it, so I'm kind of glad with how that turned out as well. The top banana question again, and once again, like every other week, I don't think I'm gonna get it. Sure, I did try to be a bit unique with it, but the one big issue is I've seen the other videos, and Connor again tops it off. A whole review in rhyme. Not even just rhyming, Shakespeare-style rhyming. That beats what I did any day of the week, because I didn't have to do a super high amount of extra work to get this working. Or oh my goodness, that would have been really hard. So no, I don't think I'm going to get top banana this week. Do I think I'm safe from the competition this week? I don't know. I'm actually a bit worried at this point with how the video turned out, and it's mainly its length. I'm worried the length is going to really hurt me and get me booted off. I will say that I will say that I do think I did a good job compared to last round, though, at the very least. Well, last round I was more I guess you could say analytical. This time it was a bit less of that, but the one thing they criticized last time was the comedy, and I think I did really well in the comedy this time. So I think that was the part where I did improve, but like I said, I thought I lost a bit of the analytical. And if I do stay, I'm going to try to get a good mixture of the two, good comedy, a good balance of comedy and actual giving good analysis for the movie that I'm watching. Yeah, that's I guess all I have to say to the audience for this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review, and hopefully, like I said, this won't be the last time that I see everybody on Who Reviews the Reviewers. Hopefully I get to keep going and get back to my old style, because, whew, I have a feeling I'm going to need it. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.
Hello friends, have you ever wanted to be a Jedi Knight and travel the galaxy? Well, now you can, with the help of The Jedi Path. The Jedi Path is actually a really cool book written by Daniel Wallace. Now, it's not a narrative exactly, it's a handbook on how to be a Jedi. And what I really like about this book is the way that it treats itself as a work of fiction. You know, this isn't just some book saying like, yeah, in the Star Wars universe, Jedi do this, this, this. No, this is an actual, like, fictional work in the Star Wars universe. The book opens up with a briefing by Luke Skywalker, and on the right here you can see all the different people who have owned the book and have then made annotations in the book talking about their experiences as a Jedi, or Sith in some cases, and how they feel both looking back on the book in the case of Luke Skywalker and how they feel while they're currently in the Jedi Order. So right off the bat, the presentation is phenomenal. This book feels really good in your hands. It's got a nice hardback cover, and I like that all the pages are frayed. It gives it this sort of artifact feel. It's very cool. And also all the illustrations are phenomenal. Most of the illustrations are new to this book. They haven't been in any of the comics or anything as far as I'm aware. But you have a lot of great illustrations showing different parts of the mythos, different parts of the way the Jedi Order operates, and things like that. And really, the presentation all around is just phenomenal. The book's divided into sections. It starts out with kind of a basic overview of the Jedi Order, talks about the Jedi Code, and then it talks about, when you become an initiate and what involves, your introductory years in the Order, and then what happens as you become an apprentice and a Padawan, taking the trials. So it's all really, really cool. Obviously, one of the key things about this book is the different people who have owned it. So it's been owned by Yoda, Thames Cerulean, Count Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin, Ahsoka, Sidious, Skywalker, Luke Skywalker. So that's really cool. It's really neat to, even though there's not a narrative, it's cool to flesh out these characters by looking at their comments in the books. Qui-Gon, for example, Qui-Gon Jinn's comments and Darth Sidious's comments are probably my favorite in the book. Qui-Gon's because in episode 1, he was this character that we didn't really get to know a lot. We knew he kind of had his disagreements with the Jedi, but we didn't delve into that a ton. Well, in this book, it delves into it a lot. He talks about his sort of confusion on different parts of the Jedi tenets that kind of contradict themselves. And Darth Sidious is one of my favorite commenters in this book, because every comment he makes is just him going, the Jedi is stupid. And I just like to imagine him sitting in his, evil office somewhere going, another Jedi weakness. The Sith are way better, That's hilarious to me, and it reaches its peak hilarity when Darth Sidious has gone through and blocked out the prophecy, which is just incredible. 2 whole pages of blocked out prophecy. Unbelievable. Some negatives, though. If you don't know who people like Thames Cerulean are, their comments aren't going to mean much. And in fact, some of the comments in this book are contradicted by the Disney buyout. Luke Skywalker talks a lot about Mara Jade, a character I love, a character that a lot of people who love the expanded universe love. Well, now those comments, are not canon, so it's a little bit hard to take those as, a really cool resource. So, while it definitely has some pros and cons and isn't canon anymore, if you're a fan of Star Wars, pick it up. It's really great. I'm ThatMattKid. I'll see you around. Hey guys, ThatMattKid here, answering questions for the latest round of Who Reviews the Reviewers. So I reviewed The Jedi Path, and I picked it because I had to pick something, obviously, where I could do it without doing editing. And this was tough. This was hard. I never want to do this again. I hated doing this. This was awful. But I went with the Jedi Path because I really like it. There's more of them. There's a Sith book and there's a Bounty Hunter book, and I like all of them. And I was like, well, this will be kind of a cool thing to review. It's not a video game because I wanted to do another video game because that's what I do. But I didn't. So, and actually picking this was tough because I wanted to review the first volume of the Knights of the Old Republic comic book series about Zane Carrick, and I wanted to review the first volume of that and do an actual like story, like spoiler analysis. But what I found was like it's a 4-minute review, and while I probably could have done an analysis in 4 minutes, I would have had to write it out and have it memorized, all of it, and I just can't do that. I don't mean to spoil the magic, but like in my last review, I scripted ahead of time. I knew going in what parts were going to be me on screen and what parts were going to be me voiceovered, voiceovering, B-roll stuff. So, I was not driving the car the whole time. It would be, all right, drive the car, say this one line that is going to be me on screen, and then stop. And then we would just film all the stuff that was me on screen, and then we would pull over, and while in the car parked, I would then just read off the lines that I knew were going to have video and images over them. So, even in my previous reviews, I don't go through in one shot and like have it all memorized. That would be insane. No, why would you do that? That would be a terrible way to operate. I plan these things meticulously because that's just what I do. So to go from that to go to, hey, just turn on a camera and talk about a thing, yeah, and because this was entirely improvised, I had kind of a general like what I wanted to say, but I was like, I'm gonna try to do an improvised review, and it was horrible, and I hated doing it, but it was also really humbling. Like, to be honest, I realized that a good chunk of the reason I've done well in this contest is because I know my way around in editing software and computers and stuff like that, and I've had access to some pretty decent equipment. Now I don't. I was able to borrow my friend's DSLR, so I was able to have a little bit of a shallow depth of field to get some separation in the background, which is a little thing that you can do to make it look a little bit more professional. But, I didn't have a tripod, so even though I could kind of get the shot set up a little bit, my head was cut off a little bit, and that was bad. And I normally double track my audio, which is you record audio with a microphone on a separate device and then sync them up in post. That's why they have those clapper things. But I couldn't do that because that's editing. So, and I couldn't just plug a microphone into the DSLR because it doesn't have an XLR port. DSLR, XLR, crazy. A lot of LRs. So this was just hard. That was the most challenging part. This was just making it simple and having these restrictions. And it gave me a lot of respect for, people like Manos and people like Mr. Cool and just everyone and everyone in the contest who has been doing this with technological limitations. You guys rock. I mean, good lord, I'm nothing without my camera setup and editing setup. So props to you guys, because you guys are probably gonna kick my butt this round. Which is, I'm not confident at all that I'll even move on to the next round, which sucks. I would like to, but I don't know. I definitely won't get top banana. Are you kidding me? No. But yeah, hopefully I can move on. But what I did enjoy about this was just, at the end of the day, it still was a learning experience. It got me out of my comfort zone. Sitting down and doing an improvised review, that's not something I ever really want to do. And I'll probably make this, and I'll probably make the review unlisted just because doesn't really fit what I want to do on my channel. But still, it was a good experience to feel out and see if I could do it. And, to be honest, I don't think the review itself is that bad. I think I cover the positives and negatives pretty okay. But, it's definitely probably my weakest work. But it's really humbled me a lot, honestly, and it's given me a lot of respect for the people who do this and are successful at it without any of the gimmicks that I have. So, yeah. See you guys later.